human rights, having served in the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor. He also loves sharing lesser-known parts of U.S. culture with others. You are welcome, David First, to yet another exciting edition of Speak with a Diplomat.
Thank you, Daniel. Just going to take a few minutes. First off, good morning, everybody. Very happy to see all the faces out there. I want to take a few minutes to kind of explain the role of a political officer before we get into questions and things, because I want to make sure that I'm not asked. I want to try to head off any questions that I will have no ability to answer whatsoever. When we talk about a political officer at an embassy, that does not mean a politician, a person in the political realm in the United States, or someone making policy. I like to think of a political officer as a communicator. When we have policies and new things that apply to Nigeria, it's my job to go to the Nigerian government and explain those. And it's my job to take what the Nigerian government wants us to know and explain it back to people in Washington. My job is a lot of meeting folks and writing things. It's not, so if you want to ask me, why is the US doing X, Y, and Z? I probably don't have an answer for you right now, because my job would be to take that request, go back, ask people, get the answer, and then give it again. So I won't be able to answer you right off here. Um, but at the same time, I find my role absolutely fascinating because what it comes down to is meeting people face to face and then trying to explain to folks back in Washington what the situation here is and how people are responding to what we say, to what we do. Um, and sometimes to try to ask the host government, whichever one I may be, wherever I may be stationed, to make some changes to more fit what we would like. It's again just about being someone who can pass that information back and forth. A lot of my job has been focused on trying to promote human rights in Togo, China, Nigeria, even Eritrea. But it often is a lot more than that. So that's what I have by way of introduction. I don't want to keep you all from your questions, and I'm happy to turn over to that. Can everyone hear me okay? I'm not getting any responses now.
We can hear you clearly.
Okay.
Dan, over to you.
Thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. Uh, most of our participants are, of course, students. And I guess by the time we mentioned you, most of them probably could have been thinking that you are a politician, but thank you so much for clarifying.
No.
Yes. So we would actually appreciate if you could just quickly dive into the conversation itself and begin to talk to us about the topic of today, especially on how to be a political officer.
Sure. I just realized that I had the chat up before and now it's gone away and I've got to figure out where that, oh, there it is.
Okay.
Like what is a political officer? As I was kind of saying, the main thing about being a political officer is being able to communicate, across the divide between two countries. Most of my day-to-day work as a political officer is meeting folks in Nigeria, understanding the situation here, and then writing it up for people back home, to understand what is happening here. I know that a lot of Nigerians will tell me that, what is seen in Western media about Nigeria is not accurate. And that is 100% the case. Western media is often very sensationalized, very biased. And so we try to provide really in-depth understanding to our policymakers back home. And at the same time, when there's a message that needs to be delivered to the government here, it's our job to carry that message over as well. We're the bridge between the two governments. And that's about the, I mean, that, in terms of like my day-to-day work, it can vary every day depending on what the current question is, what the current issue is, and what requests I get either from the Nigerian government or the US government. To give an example, during the recent horrifying attacks over in Benue State in the town in Yalawata, this got a lot of attention in the US, and a lot of the initial reports that were seen in the Western media, in the US in particular, had some inaccuracies or did not explain the whole story. And so my office, and we have a very big office for a political section. We have like 10 people. We have people who are specialized in different areas, and our person who's specialized in religious freedom and communal violence really got to work reaching out to contacts. Our security person got to work reaching out to contacts to try to build a more complete picture of what happened to send back to Washington, to help explain that nothing fits little slogans, little buzzwords that people like to throw around. And so I don't have like a day-to-day. It is very driven by what's in the news, who can I meet with. I do generally, well, when I was a more junior political officer, my usual goal was to meet somebody every day. And I would spend at least an hour a day meeting somebody, maybe someone I've met before, maybe someone new, to understand something about the country I was in. I've reached a level now where more of my job is just managing other people who are doing that. But it's still the most important part is just getting out, meeting people, learning about the country, and helping explain that back home. And occasionally explaining what we do here.
Oh, thank you very much. How does your current role actually, how is your current role quite different from the role you played in Togo, Eritrea, and China, comparing that to Nigeria?
Well, my role in China was actually I was a visa officer there. I then worked in DC, which is a whole different. DC, you're one small person in a very large organization. That's a whole different role. I was not a political officer for that. But in Eritrea and Togo, those are such small countries, such small countries, that I was the entire political section. So it was my job to meet with people, to talk to people, to come up with, to explain, to do everything a political section does in terms of reporting back to Washington, in terms of meeting with the local government and explaining what the U.S. wanted them to know. Here, because Nigeria is so large and we have so many interests in Nigeria, we have a much larger section. So a lot of my job here is kind of managing and directing others who do this. We have people who work on just about every issue you can imagine. We have a separate economic section in Eritrea. Actually, our political, economic, and public diplomacy sections were all combined, and I was the one person doing all three. So that's the biggest difference. Is how much management I do versus how much I'm able to delegate here. Other difference, obviously, Eritrea is a very, very different country from Nigeria. It is a dictatorship, and so there were just different things one would be reporting on. We didn't have election watch parties there.
Wow. It's quite good to hear the experiences you've garnered in different countries as in the course of your tour. We believe that in the course of all of this, there are also challenges. So what exactly do you think are the challenges diplomats encounter abroad?
I'm sorry, you froze for a second. Can you go back? I heard there are challenges. That's all I heard.
Okay, I was saying that in the course of your tour, I know that there could be challenges. So what are the challenges diplomats actually encounter in the course of that tour?
So those challenges change from country to country. One challenge can be how people view the United States. If you say you're a political officer in some countries, first off, there's the fact that as I mentioned, as we talked about at the beginning, certain misapprehension about what that even means. And I've definitely had times when I would say I'm a political officer and I would be shunned in some countries because they assumed that meant that I was a politician or that I was in charge of policy. Other problems, of course, are, I've definitely had to deal with problems of security. During my time in Eritrea, the most recent war in Ethiopia started, which the Eritreans were involved in, and rockets fell on the capital while I was there. That was a very, very scary situation for me. And then, but I think the biggest challenge that I see, and this is something that it's a little different in every country you go to, is that things, particularly early on, things that you just take for granted are not the same everywhere you go. And you think you know this until you're actually confronted with it. The best instance I can give is that I learned early on in the United States, it's, very common to, for people to try to manage problems and find solutions at the lowest level possible. You never want to run things up to the boss and waste his time if you can work it out between yourself and someone at your level. And in Togo, I got called into a very high level office to be yelled at because someone on our side reached out to a same level counterpart on their side to try to work out something. And he was absolutely furious that it had not gone through him in particular, that it had not gone through the minister in particular. And I remember looking at him with the just most dumbfounded look on my face because I literally could not understand why he was yelling at me over this. And at the end, I was like, "Look, sir, I'm sorry. I will pass this message along, but this is how we usually do things. So I'll try to make sure things go through you, sir. But this is going to be a cultural difference that we're going to have to get used to." And I've just run into everywhere I've gone. I've run into things like that, places where, to us, a face-to-face conversation can be just as official as a piece of paper. An email is definitely just as official as a piece of paper. A lot of other places, I'm told, oh, no, if it is not stamped and signed and everything else, then it doesn't count. So a lot of my biggest problems are those, like trying to figure out how our systems work differently and try to bridge that gap. And it's not always perfect because no matter how many times I tell my counterparts in the States, they do not understand that some things just will not work unless we do it the host country's way.
Oh, that's quite interesting. The host country's way. Okay. Um, I know that despite all of these challenges, there has been a motivating factor behind your ideas just to keep pushing and keep doing what you know how to do best and try to be professional and all of that. What exactly has been your motivating factor?
I first wanted to work for the State Department. More accurately, from a young age, I knew I wanted to work in public service. I was dedicated to the idea of I didn't want my life's work to be something that just, was for profit, to make money, to have a nice life. I wanted my work to mean something. And as I was going through college, I came to the realization that my best skills were my language skills, my communication skills, my ability to reach out and understand others who are different from myself. And so I joined the U.S. Foreign Service for that reason, to try to build bridges between countries, to help to help the United States be a force to support and help others around the world, and to help Americans understand, to help policymakers understand what's going on in the rest of the world. And so that has been my driving force my entire career. There's nothing. I'll be honest. I also love writing. So like the thing that I love most in my job is when I've gone and met somebody and they've explained something to me, and I now finally feel like I understand it, and then can transmit that back through a written report. is like and I have a lot of colleagues think I'm weird for that, but that is like my favorite part of my job. So like whatever the challenges are, like just knowing that I am helping, bridge this gap between our two governments and help them understand each other better. It's my favorite thing in the world.
Oh, thank you very much. Just a follow-up question to that. So in bridging this gap, how do you navigate through cultures? How do you manage the cultural differences that you encounter?
It's sometimes difficult, although most of the time the cultural differences are. Well, I want to take a step back. When we talk about cultural differences, we can talk about like cultural differences between peoples, and I think those are often overstated. I often like to talk about the fact that Nigerians are so much like Americans. We're both very open, warm, passionate, loud, faithful people. We have a lot in common. And most people around the world are kind people who care about their families and want to make things better. There are differences, but those are very manageable. The harder differences to explain are organizational cultural differences. Like, yes, for this government to do X, Y, and Z, it needs A, B, C. And that doesn't make any sense to us because we wouldn't need that, but they do. That's the part where it gets tricky. Trying to explain that, yes, I need a signed, stamped piece of paper in order to get anywhere with what's being requested. That's the harder part. That I have not actually done so successfully. I've had to try to find workarounds to make our two systems work in some cases. One of the worst examples of this, and this was just like conflicting regulation between our systems. So working in Togo, we were doing a project there with the military, and we were providing funding for this project. This was 10 plus years ago. We were taking a bunch of cadets to go teach English, which, whatever, I'm not even sure it was that worthwhile project, but we were doing it. And the whole trip almost fell apart over how to provide the funding for the gasoline to get the cadets to where they needed to go teach English, because we could only pay someone back for it. We had to have receipts and reimburse them, but they could not get, like, their system. It had to be paid by us in advance. They could not pay it and get reimbursed. And so it was a round and round kind of thing to figure out how to make these two systems work together. And fortunately, I was working with wonderful folks in other sections, and it was our finance team that came up with the answer. That's where it gets hard. That's the hard part, is how to make competing systems work. People are easy. People want the same thing, no matter where you are. May express it differently, may use different languages. That can be difficult when you're trying to like use a language that's not your mother tongue. I understand that. But people are easy compared to systems.
Well, thank you so much for clarifying that. Um, I know we I know we have a lot of young people who are sitting across network of American spaces all over Nigeria. And please, you can type in your question if you have any question. If you are on our Facebook, please send your question. We'll read it to David. And if you're on YouTube, please send in your question. You can also send your question via the chat. Speak with the director or managing your spaces. They can also help you type in your question. For those of you that want to ask your question directly, please prepare and get them ready. Um, David, a lot of our young people who are watching today will want to know if you have eaten Nigerian jollof rice.
Oh yeah. I
Oh,
actually
that's
had
good.
jollof rice. I had jollof rice before I ever came to Nigeria, because my neighborhood in
Mm.
Maryland, I own a house in Maryland. We have a fantastic restaurant called Jollof Etc., run by. It's a mainstay of the local Nigerian diaspora community, and it is one of my favorite restaurants in the area around my house. I definitely got funny looks the first few times I went. But I went often enough that I became, that they all knew me. And then I would have friends meet me there, and then my friends would get funny looks until I showed up. And then you could like see the understanding in the eyes of the people working it, like, oh, they're with that guy. Actually, my last tour in Eritrea, it's very hard to get any food that's not Eritrean there. I went online and looked up as many recipes as I could to try to figure out how to make jollof rice for myself. which was a passable substitute when I didn't have the real thing available. But I was very glad to get here and get the real thing again, because mine doesn't. The one I make myself doesn't compare. That's not the only Nigerian food I've had, of course. I absolutely love moi moi, coconut rice. The way you all cook chicken, fantastic.
Thank you very much. Um, are there states here in Nigeria that you have visited in course of your duty?
I'm I'm sorry, you got cut off halfway through.
Okay, can you
Like
hear me
the
now?
beginning part. Yes.
Okay, are there Nigerian states that you've been to in the course of your duty?
I am really sorry to say that no, I haven't. My main portfolio within the section, besides managing the section, is working directly with the MFA, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So my duties are very, 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 very focused on that. So I have not gotten out to the other states. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, there are a couple of questions across the spaces. I'll take them one after another. First, let's go to American Center, Lagos, at the consulate. American Center, please unmute and ask your question, please.
Okay, thank you so much, dear David, the diplomat there. My question goes thus. Now, considering the security issues we are having in Nigeria, how do you maneuver, as in how do you get to meet with people without being threatened? Like, of course, when they see people with white people, particularly the color and all that, the threat is high. How do you get across to people and then you get your information intact to work with? Thank you.
It froze again. I caught the question. Okay. Can you all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. While there are obviously security issues across Nigeria, I have found at least Abuja, thankfully, to be a very safe place. I've been able to meet people all around Abuja. I go to people's offices. People come to the embassy, even a few coffee shops that we like to go to if we want to get out of the stuffier office environment. The problem is more if we try to go out to the states. And then there's just we have like a whole protocol to make that happen. It's takes a lot of extra work, but it's definitely doable.
All right, thank you. Let's take a question from Mr. Martins. Martins, please unmute and ask your question, please. Martins, can you hear me? All right, let's go to
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, please unmute and ask your question.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Martin Abdel-Bajale from Abeokuta, Window in America. Thank you very much, our diplomat. Looking at the topic for today, balancing advocacy and human rights. And of course, every nation
I'm sorry, I think
has
you got cut off. I can't hear you.
Martins, can you take that again,
Can
please?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, looking at the topic for today, saying balancing advocacy and human rights. In a country like Nigeria, where we face so much oppression, we have different means of reaching out to our own government or to sympathetic ears. But and we do we explore different means, some as riots, some lobbying and all of that. So, but when they don't listen to us, then it results to riots or some peaceful protest. But you see the way they do in Nigeria, that our Nigerian police would just, sabotage peaceful protests and all of that. So, as a diplomat, what role do you think? What role are you playing, or what do you think we can do better in Nigeria, just to get the attention of our own leaders and to help us speak to them or maybe advocate on our behalf? Because when we have it, we believe we have an external authority that can also support our plight. Thank you very much.
My answer is not going to be very satisfying for you. I'm going to be honest with you. It is very much not my place. I would not be, I'm not arrogant enough to tell you what Nigerians should do to feel more heard by leaders in their own country. I am a foreigner who is here for a couple of years and then off I go. It would be the height of folly for me to try to tell you what means you should use to get attention for issues that you face on any level. So I know that, in the past, we have ourselves lobbied the government on issue X, Y, or Z. That's what we do as an embassy. But it's up to Nigerians to decide how best to move forward on issues on the issues they care about. Again, it's not a satisfying answer, I know, but it's not one that I can answer for Nigerians.
Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely correct, David. Thank you for that response. Let us take a question from American Corner Lucky, then we'll head to Maiduguri.
I will also say those 2 questions in the chat.
Okay. Yes, I think we'll take them
Let's do
immediately.
Lucky. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, 2 questions from the chat. Let's do Lucky, then we'll go to the 2 questions from the chat. Lucky, over to you, please.
Good morning. Good morning to our diplomats. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah,
I can
hear you loud and clear.
All right. So I have just one question, and my question is to our diplomat. What political value do you hold so dear to your heart, and you've been promoting over time to as a way to contribute to our democratic values in our Nigerian system? So what is that political value that you hold
you're
so dear to?
you're freezing on me, and I'm having a hard time catching what you're saying.
Okay, sorry about I think please, Lucky, can you take that again? You are freezing from your end.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So I asked, what political value, to our diplomat, what political value do you hold dear to your heart and you've been promoting and pushing to influence or to contribute to our own democratic value system in Nigerian government? Thank you.
I caught most of that. So if I don't end up, if I missed a important part, feel free to come back to me. I heard something about what political values.
Yeah,
Actually, no, I didn't
political
catch enough of
value?
it.
Yeah, he was saying that what political value do you hold dear to your heart that you have been pushing? You have actually been pushing on behalf of yourself and probably Nigeria as a whole.
One of our presidents, Abraham Lincoln, once described democracy. Yeah, once described the United States as government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And that is, at the end of the day, one of the things that we hold most dear. And that is one thing that we have long pushed for. Of course, all of those things under the rule of law. And so those are the values that really mean the most to me. I also know that no matter what my personal views on any topic are, I am responsible ultimately to the people of the United States. But I also want to make things better for the people of the host country. So these are the kind of things. It's not like, an easy pat, yes, my job everywhere I go is to promote democracy or to promote free trade or anything like that. It's more like this interplay of many different values and making sure that I'm staying true to the ideals that led me to becoming a diplomat. Better relations around the world, increased prosperity for all peoples, and peace, hopefully democracy. So it's not like one thing I can point to. It's the way they all kind of come together.
Thank you, David. All right, let's take the questions on the chat box. The first one say, what will your advice be for a young graduate that wants to pursue a career as a political officer?
So this is where I will admit, this is where those differing systems comes into play. If I was talking to a young American, I would have all kinds of advice because I know how the American State Department, I know how their recruiting works, I know how their process is, and I can give them advice on how to apply to State Department to become a diplomat. I don't know how the Nigerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs hires people. What I can say that I think is more universal is that the most important things are to be curious about the rest of the world, to constantly look into understanding the rest of the world, and make sure you speak some foreign languages, some languages that are spoken elsewhere in the world besides just your home country. So for me, and I'll go ahead and I think this will help with the second question that's in the chat as well. I was a Chinese major in college. Now, I did not start college thinking I was going to be a foreign service officer. So there were some courses I definitely should have taken and didn't in college. I went to grad school for those. But like, I was a Chinese language major, and that is one of the things that helped me most. That's what helped lead me towards the foreign service and helped me think through what I wanted to do, and very much helped me to get in. Now, what I was lacking were the political science courses to understand how our government works, what international relations are actually like, et cetera, et cetera. Those are also extremely useful. And then at least in the US system, there's a test you have to take to do this. And there's a lot of information that they kind of expect you to know about, like, for the US, at least they want you to have some work history already because they want to make sure that you're not someone who's a problem in the workplace. They want to see that you know how to interact with other people, that you have interpersonal skills. At the time I took it, I even had to answer a question about how often I had to use the phone at my previous jobs. Fortunately for me, I had done a job where my whole job was cold calling people, so I was able to check that box. But in terms of coursework, political science, history, definitely foreign language more than anything else. If there's an international relations program, great. I did end up getting a master's in diplomacy from the University of Kentucky, and that was like the final thing that helped me get in.
Thank you very much for sharing that. I think you've responded to the other question in the chat previously in the course of your conversation on what are some of the most significant challenges you have faced as a political officer and how have you overcome them?
What significant challenges I faced.
Yeah.
I think I covered a lot of that.
Yeah.
I will add one other challenge that I have faced. And this is very particular to me. This is not, every political officer. I suffer from a decent number of health problems that can make life very difficult for me in almost any job that I have. Chronic illnesses plagued me since I was a child. And I'm very fortunate that with the US government, we have strong laws in place for disability accommodations, and those have really been important for my being able to do this career. Throughout my career, I've received support. Sorry for coughing, everyone's here.
No, sorry.
I have received support for accommodations I needed, and I've been able to make that work due to that. So I'm very thankful for that. Other challenges, like I said, are mostly about like cultural, like organizational differences, and in a couple of cases, being very scared for my life.
All right. Thank you. Let's go to Meduguri now. Meduguri, please unmute and ask your question. Josephine, please check if there are questions on Facebook and YouTube, please. Can you just
Thank you. Good morning, sir.
share them in the chat box so we can read them out? Go ahead,
Thank you. Good morning,
Meduguri.
sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, I have two questions.
Sorry, you're breaking, Meduguri. We can't
How do
hear
you
you.
balance the interests of the United States? How do you balance the interests of the United States with the needs and perspective of the host country? And what strategy do you use to promote mutual understanding and cooperation? My second question is, what are the biggest diplomatic challenges you have faced and how did you overcome them?
So that's three.
Am I
I was going to say
audible?
that's three questions. Yeah, you're audible. That was not, your first question was two questions.
Two.
I'll do my best. I should have written them down as you were asking. How do I balance like the interest of the United States with like the needs
country
and things of the host country? So it must be clear. My job is to promote the interests of the United States. That is the bedrock of what I do. That is the bedrock of what any diplomat does anywhere. Fortunately, the interests of the United States usually overlap pretty strongly with the needs of the host countries. And I do try to find, I think we're going to get a lot more success when those two do overlap. And so a lot of my job is trying to find where are the areas of mutual interest and mutual cooperation in order to promote those. I do sometimes have to deliver messages that the host country is not going to like, that the Nigerian people might not like. That is also part of my job, but it is the interest of the United States that I deliver those message. But for the most part, I've been able to focus, I think, my entire career on things of mutual cooperation and mutual benefit. And I know there were like all of it was like so tied to that, but I don't remember the other parts of it now. Sorry.
I think he mentioned something around mutual understanding towards the end of his question.
Yeah, a lot of that comes down to
how do you promote mutual understanding?
Yeah,
between the countries?
Well, I'll be honest. A lot of mutual understanding between two countries is what my PD colleagues, my public diplomacy colleagues, do. They're the ones who really like promote understanding of the United States in Nigeria at large. My job is making sure that American decision makers and Nigerian decision makers understand each other more than anything else. And that's a lot of times just like, sending messages on each side being like, this is what the folks in Washington are trying to say, or this is what I need in order to make this message resonate with my Nigerian counterparts. And so it's just a lot of acting as like the middleman between them to help bridge that gap.
Thank you very much. All right, let's take more questions. Guys, please send in your questions. We'll try to take as much as we can. Our time is actually fast spent. So, but there are some other questions here that David has responded to, so we'll not be taking those questions again. I think he responded to this on factors that inspire you to become a political officer. What do you find most rewarding about this role? I think David has said quite a lot, but do you want to add something?
Because I had options when I decided to become a diplomat. I could have been a public diplomacy officer. I could have been an economic officer, etc. When it comes down to it, the reason I wanted to be a political officer above other options for being a diplomat is the fact that at the end of the day, policy questions around things like policy questions are what interests me most. I love what my public diplomacy friends do. I'm not good at organizing events. I'm not, it's not my jam. Whereas meeting people individually and digging deep into questions of like, why does Nigeria do things this way? What is going to happen in the next election? Or what's up with blah, 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 blah. That's what always is interested in me, and not so much economics. I'm okay with economics. I've done economic work. I can do that. But it's never as interesting to me as elections, human rights, international organizations votes, things like that. So that was a matter of just like what was more personally interesting to me. Now I see a question about how do I balance my private life with being a diplomat?
Yes.
I am fortunate that I am not high enough level where that is much of a problem. I am married. My wife is fairly introverted. She is not one who wants to go out to all the events with me. She doesn't want to, she doesn't want to go to the fancy dinners and things. She's very happy to be at home with our cats. So the thing for me is just making sure that I don't overcommit myself and don't. This gets back to the bit of talking about like having chronic illness issues. It's very easy for me to just run myself dry of energy, just to overcommit myself and collapse. So a lot of the actual challenge there is making sure that I don't do that. My wife is very good about not being involved and not wanting to be involved. The hard part about balancing, because private life is such a wide thing, and actually one of the biggest challenges of this career, no matter whether you're a political officer, economic consul, or whatever, it is hard to go back and see your family. It's hard to go back and see your friends. To get from here back to my hometown, so I'm not from DC or New York. I'm from the city of Louisville, Kentucky. It's a good 24 hours to get there, because I have to take like so many planes to get there. That is one of the biggest challenges. I definitely have friends whose kids have grown up, and these are like my best friends, and I've seen their kids a handful of times. That's the hardest challenge, actually.
Yeah.
But the work I'm doing is rewarding enough. I'm happy about it. This actually gets to the newest question I just saw. I do spend a lot of time talking with folks back home, either by phone or messaging, email, etc. And I do try at least every couple of years to spend some time back in my home of Kentucky. Hoping I can go home for Christmas this year. We'll see. But that is a hard thing. That's the hardest thing.
Okay.
And do I miss my home country? Yes. Like I love Nigeria, and I can go on about all the things I love about Nigeria. But at the end of the day, Nigeria is not home for me.
Do you have something you love most about Nigeria? What do you love most about Nigeria?
Most about Nigeria? Well, the Nigerian people, obviously. Y'all are like the warmest, kindest, most outgoing folks I think I've met in my time.
Wow. Do you have a Nigerian favorite attire?
No, and I feel like that would be a really hazardous question to try to answer, because I know y'all all the different groups have your own attire, and if I pick out one, then I'm sliding all the rest. I really wish I could get some of these kind of outfits to wear back home, because they look so much more comfortable than a suit. I hate wearing a suit. And a lot of these things, like what you're wearing right now, looks so much more comfortable.
Okay. All right, guys. I'll take Josephine, do you have a question?
Yes, I wanted to ask David, have you worn Agbada before?
No, he has never
Or
worn any Nigerian attire.
I have a Nigerian style shirt. Don't ask me what it's called. I don't remember now. I got it like 2 years ago, and I like to wear it. Unfortunately, it's it's Nigerian style. It's probably not an actual traditional shirt, but it's open a little too low for me, and I don't like having like my actual chest exposed like that. But I love the pattern on it, and I do wear it occasionally with something underneath it.
All right, Daniel, there's another question here, so please go ahead, ask the question. Go ahead, speak up.
Hello.
You have to speak out loud so I can hear you.
No pressure. Should I come closer?
Please do.
Okay.
Please make it snap it, please.
Okay. Hi. My question is this.
Go ahead.
Okay. I want to talk specifically for the free trade that you spoke about. So at what point, or has there ever been any difficult situation where the Americans or your country tells you something to do or to say, or a contract to broker with your host country, Nigeria specifically, because that's my home country, and that pricks your conscience because you know that it would not be such a good bargain for Nigeria? Had there been any time where you tell your bosses, no, I don't think I can do this, or you go ahead anyways and you broker that trade knowing that it would harm my country? That's what I want to know. And I know you're doing your job, but yeah.
That's a tricky one, David.
It's less tricky than it sounds, just because, well, one, I don't broker trade. Like that's not. I'm in the political. I'm a political officer here. When the one time I was an economic officer, that was a country where we were so far from getting to even having trade agreements. We were still trying to work out like how we would even like be able to talk to each other at a table at all. So I've never had to do that. But most of the time, I feel like what my job is to communicate what to the Nigerians, what the United States wants, is offering, is asking, etc. And even if I feel like what I'm being told to tell the Nigerians, maybe I don't agree with, if I don't agree with the policy that's being put forward, that can happen. But it's still important for the Nigerian government to know what the American government's saying. So whatever I may feel about the message, it's important that the local government have that message. And in fact, be doing a disservice if I did try to hold that message back. Because then in Washington, they're going to be like, well, they should know this. You all are supposed to tell them this. And they'll make decisions without getting the feedback from the Nigerians that would be beneficial to both sides. So at the end of the day, whether I like the message or not, it needs to be delivered. And then, my job is then to get the feedback from the Nigerians and take it back to the people in Washington. And so I've not been in a position where I've had to be like, no, I cannot do this. This is wrong. I refuse. Fortunately, I have not been in that position.
Thank you so much. Well spoken. Let's go to Uyo. Then we'll head to Abiyakuta. Yeah, please unmute and ask your question.
Thank you very much. Your session has been very insightful, very insightful. So I have a question. In the midst of the global conflicts, especially international conflicts, becoming more critical these days. So how do you, especially with shifting alliances, new world powers emerging and everything, how do you maintain objectivity and still build relationship with host countries and and particularly your host country? How do you maintain the objectivity in events like where the conflicts are becoming more, technical? Okay, thank you.
Okay, if I understood
Did you
the
get that
question?
Okay.
I think so. I need to start with, remember that my position is not to be objective. I don't want to mislead anyone on this. As I said before, my at the end of the day, my job is to promote U.S. interests. Mostly, again, those overlap, but I don't want anyone to forget that part. And at the end of the day, like it's in our interest to have a good working relationship with any country that I can be posted to. whether it's a longtime friend like Nigeria or certain ones I've been to that are not so friendly. The point is to find where we can work together and advance things for both of our benefit. And most of the time, what's happening in the rest of the world can affect, like, we want someone to vote this way at the UN, or we want someone to vote that way. But at the end of the day, there's an old saying from the US, all politics is local. Most of the things we deal with are very much on a bilateral basis, on trying to find ways to improve things for both of us. And all the outside stuff matters, but not as much as you might think.
Thank you very much. Let's go to Abeokuta. Then we'll head to Bauchi. Abeokuta, please unmute and ask your question.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
My question is actually pertaining to this topic. At the same time, it's a little bit out of the context. It is about this electoral system. As a diplomat, if you look at the American electoral system, it is based. It is electoral. It is based on an electronic voting machine. At the same time, too, what advice do you have in running this sort of a thing in Nigeria? And what advice can you give to our government in making sure that this thing can work in Nigeria, so the electoral system can be transparent and our vote can count? Thank you.
As a diplomat, thank you. As a diplomat, I have no advice on that. That is a highly technical field, and we have lots of experts in the US. And in the past, we've brought those experts over to help assist. But, like, honestly, if you ask me the difference between, like, two different kinds of voting machines, I don't know. I worked one election before I joined the State Department I worked at a poll center one election. And I think we were actually still using paper ballots then. So I have no expertise on voting systems, how to set up an election. But in the past, we have supported, like, having those experts come over and provide assistance. But I have no personal, like, suggestions on that. That's way outside I know what I'm good at. But most important thing to always know is know what you know and know what you don't know. That's in the I don't know category. Sorry.
Thank you. Let's go to Bauchi. Bauchi, please unmute and ask your question. Then we'll head to Calabar.
Thank you so much for this privilege, although it's such an amazing session. My question is this. So how can Nigerian youth be effectively involved in policy change?
Sorry, can you be audible? We cannot hear you
I
clearly.
can't hear you. You need to be louder.
Thank you so much for this privilege. It's such an amazing session. So my question is this: how can Nigerian youths be effectively involved in policy change or changing policy, similar to the engagement of the youth in the US? Thank you so much.
Similar to what?
Similar to the engagement of the youth in the US.
Thank you. I kind of hate how often I have to say this, but I don't know. I go back to what I said at the beginning. I don't actually work in policymaking. I don't work in politics. My job is just explaining things back and forth between the two governments. It would be ridiculously arrogant of me to tell Nigerians how to advocate for themselves within their own system. I definitely can say that particularly in a country like Nigeria, where 50% of people are under the age of 21, from the statistic I keep hearing. Not sure if that's true or not. The voice of the youth is one of the most important things in the country. But how you should organize, how you should get your voice heard, that is, I don't have the first idea for you. That's way beyond my knowledge base.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
I will add,
go ahead,
though,
David.
Our PD section has various programs that can be of help, including particularly like the Young African Leaders Initiative. turn to the we have experts who work with the Young African Leaders Initiative who could actually answer that better than I ever could.
Yes, thank you so much. There are a lot of programs that we hold, especially for young people, how to actually engage and probably maybe add their opinion on how to so the government can actually hear them and listen to them. We have a lot of programs where sometimes we get speakers from the US specifically to address such issues, especially on civic engagement and all of that. So please try to see how you can be part of our program so that you can benefit from such program. Let's take a question from Calabar, and that should be our last question for today. Calabar, over to you, please.
Thank you, sir, for this amazing session. Describe the time when you had to make a difficult decision under pressure that had a significant effect on your career as a diplomat.
I'm thinking. I heard your question. I want to make that clear. I'm just kind of thinking. The most time pressure I ever felt, and probably would have been back when I was doing visas. You have a lot of time pressure on that because we have so many people to go through, but I'm not sure how many of those would have had significant effects. I will say that our system is usually pretty good about giving people time to think through and come up with, what is the right thing, what is the wrong thing. And I have, I guess, enough experience with that I can't think of too many times I have felt that kind of pressure to make a decision immediately. The exception might have been when COVID hit. We had our team, so I was in Eritrea at the time, our team had to start making decisions about to what extent we were going to send people home from the embassy as precautionary measures in case COVID hit the country. And I was initially asked to go home myself, which honestly, on the one hand, I probably would have preferred. The medical system in that country was not anywhere near the US standards, not up to Nigerian standards. And so there was a certain amount of fear of having to stay in case COVID started spreading through Eritrea. And that was a scary thought. But at the same time, I knew that I was the only one there who had the requisite training and certifications to handle certain functions to help other American citizens who may have been in the country. I had what's called a consular commission, meaning I could do passports, I could do repatriation flights, etc. No one else who was there at the time had that. And so despite the personal risk, I went to my boss and I said, hey, I have to stay. I know you think that you and your second command can handle this, but when was the last time you touched any of these systems? When's the last time you looked at any of these systems? I'm not great at them. I was the backup. I wasn't the main person to do them. But I'm I think you're going to need me. And he went back and thought about it. I was like, yeah, you're right. And so in a very short amount of time, we changed that around. I sent my wife and all of our animals home. And I spent 6 months living in a house by myself, trying to stay as far away from people as I could, but was able to stick around and help. I ended up working on several flights to get Americans home. That's a small country, but we still had over 200 Americans that we needed to get home. So that's the one I can think of. It was, we had very little time to make decisions about who would stay and who would go. And so having to go to my boss and say, no, I need to stay, that was difficult, but we did. And it turned out to be the right call, thankfully. And I didn't get COVID then, which is also good.
Thank you very much, David, for coming on our program. And I will call on Josephine to actually thank you and probably give us announcements for American Spaces. Josephine, over to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dan, for anchoring this session. And David, would like to appreciate you for coming on the program this morning. And we have gone beyond your the questions that we're supposed to ask you, but thank you for taking our time to answer these questions. Thank you. Please, can we give a round of applause to David? Thank you for your time. I would also like to appreciate all our participants in all our 29 American spaces spread all over the nation. Thank you for joining this morning. Next week, we're going to continue with our youth development series. This time we are going into the digital economy. The time is 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. Follow us on our Facebook page, American Spaces Nigeria, American Spaces NG. Also on our YouTube channel. You get to watch our past videos on the YouTube channel. And we are looking forward to seeing you. Have a very nice day. And thank you once again. Bye, everyone.